let's get to the banned conversation, the conversation that will send Twitter crazy and the guardians of the gallery nuts. We're not allowed to use the term dole bludger, despite the fact that there are people who rip the system off. Sorry if that offends you, Sooks, but we're going to keep using the term because normal people know what it means. Does it mean that every person who's unemployed and gets welfare is a dole bludger? No. But you already know that, don't you, you smart asses? Here's the Prime Minister when asked about this in part a bit earlier today.
I'll tell you another bill that's going to come back into this place, and that's drug testing, Mr Speaker, to ensure that our welfare system has integrity and that we support Australians who are trying to get off welfare and into work. Just like with a cashless debit card, we will see when it comes to these issues, Labor is not for taxpayers, nor are they for people who want to get off welfare and get to work.
And one more time, apologising for the use of the term dole bludger, Natalie Barr on Channel 7 this morning.
We used the term dole bludgers early in the show when referring to those who've had their Newstart payments suspended. That may have misled some viewers. As we clarified in subsequent bulletins yesterday, and in our live interview with the Minister responsible, Michaelia Cash, there are many welfare recipients whose payments are suspended for reasons other than doing the wrong thing. It was a poor choice of words and we are sorry.
Oh, come on. I repeat, 1 in 12 of the people who ended up getting booted off payments had 10 or more suspensions for failing to do the basic things, which are, among other things, turning up for job interviews. James Campbell, what is it about some of your colleagues there in the gallery running around, twittering, and we all know who one of these people are, doing their bit for the Union Super News site, running around there telling everyone you're not allowed to use the term dole bludger. Come on.
Well, I have to make a confession at this point that back in my 20s, I might have done a little bit of dole bludging myself.
What?
And many of my friends did too. It was a sort of a kind of a means-tested but artistic grant that you didn't really have to apply for. It just came every fortnight. And the activity test, I have to be honest, was not onerous. You could, in those days, you could just walk into a pub and say, is there any shifts going? And if the barman said no, right, you were. You know, you just filled it in.
Well, now that you've got that off your chest, now that you've confessed to speeding in a 50 zone, can we use the term dole bludger in 2019? Are we allowed to use this term? Because horror, we might piss somebody off who is a dole bludger?
You can use any term you want. I mean, the problem with their story was that it was undifferentiated. They basically didn't appear to be, you know, talking about the people you were talking about in your introduction. They were lumping them all in together. So it was pretty crude stuff from them, I thought. And they, you know, and then they got the woke police landed on the doorstep, knock, 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 and you know, Natalie Barr's a fair cop. Just how it works these days. Look, I don't mind the term dole bludger. Some people are dole bludgers. Some people on the dole are not dole bludgers. Even the bludging, you know, as Barnaby Joyce said the other day, though, it's not much of a life of luxury bludging on the dole these days. It's not like it was, you know, 30 years ago.
Way back when it was the CES and you were doing some street theatre.
The CES was a wonderful institution.
We'll get to some of your artistic endeavours. Was it theatre-based or just were you a mime in the streets of Melbourne? What was it that was the young artistic James Campbell?
Well, I was a writer, but I didn't do any writing. It was like, you know, I think...
Oh, and you appeared in an opera.
Oh, this is it. Oh, no more bloody opera chat.
Oh, yeah.
No. He did the smoking, he did the drinking, he may have even had a wanker beret on for a little while there while running around in St Kilda. But, OK, let's get to the point here again.
It was in St Kilda, actually.
I have no doubt. At the SB. All right, now let's talk about this here, where... Again, just the fragility of parts of the media that as soon as the woke police start waving, whoa, we must correct the record straight away, for God's sake.
Well, it's very simple. The term dole bludger applies to those people who don't meet their mutual obligation. But let's understand that good old socialists, they've got a much better idea. You remember George Bernard Shaw said that everybody should have to account for their usefulness to the state and ability to work at various times in their life, and if they couldn't justify their existence, they should be eliminated, and someone should invent a nice gas so it could be done kindly.
Well, where are you going with
then
this
we had National Socialists We had the international socialists with Russia, and of course the Chinese knew how to eliminate people, and they didn't know them better than anybody else. So I think we've got a fairly benign system here, and I think a dole bludger can easily be called just that when it means you've breached your mutual obligation.
Now, Nicholas, you're looking a little weak in the gills there because your bleeding heart would be gushing right now. Absolutely gushing. James is going to have to pick you up at some moment. We'll have to have a blood transfusion because, God forbid, we call somebody who keeps taking the piss of the welfare system a dole bludger.
Well, I've got a lot to say on this one. Point one is... I mean, you know, if anyone's at home playing the Bronwyn Says Socialism drink game tonight, they're going to fall off their chair even before the first ad break. She's just let rip there.
Absolutely.
And as the resident socialist here on Sky News, I can tell you that I've never been a dole bludger, and I never would be a dole bludger, because I actually believe in the social welfare system, and I think it's got an important role to play in protecting people in our community and allowing them to, you know, not completely fall out of society, but come back and go on to be good citizens, productive citizens. But the big point we're missing in this whole debate is that this whole thing about dole bludgers, and I don't mind using that word, is a big fat distraction. The real story in all this is that there are just not enough jobs in the economy for people at the moment. Last month there were 700,000 people looking for work in Australia. There was only 100,000 jobs advertised. And this whole distraction which Scott Morrison is trying to take us down is trying to take people's attention away from that. The second thing, which I think is quite disgraceful, is Scott Morrison today banging on about, you know, drugs tests for people on welfare. I mean, that is the tiredest cliche out of the Liberal Party's old book of dirty tricks. I mean, you know, they specialise in taking vulnerable people in our community, trying to single them out and pick on them. And that's exactly what Scott Morrison was trying to do there. And it's disgraceful, and he should get back to talking about issues that matter, like how does our economy generate more jobs?
You know, I've told you before, you're actually a nice bloke if you could just get over your socialism. You self-confessed tonight.
Well, now that he says that he's not going to run the Labor Party, he can now openly say he is the resident socialist. He's come out in cloth now that he's not in the running. Otherwise, if you were there, you would have self-admitted you were a socialist running the Labor Party, Nick.
I have no problem with the term social democrat to describe somebody like myself.
That's not what you said.
You said the resident
business
socialist.
cards said socialist, pal. If you're allowed to have business cards as socialists.